with a knife video for you, and today we're taking a look at the Tuya Knives Thorax. This is a knife that I have to say I've been really impressed with. Now, I've wanted to pick one of these up and check it out for a while. This is not a new knife from Tuya, and I just didn't really have the opportunity. So when I was talking to Dave about getting the Kingsman, which I was on the channel a few weeks ago, I included this in that order, and honestly guys, I've been super impressed with this knife. Lots of good things to say about it, but most especially size and weight. You guys know I like the larger knives. I like things that are simple but well done, and this knife really checks a lot of boxes for me, so I was pretty happy to be able to get this in hand, and it has not disappointed. I really like this knife. And out of all of Tuya's lineup, this one would be on my short list of most recommended, above the Kingsman for sure, and probably above a lot of their other knives. This is such a well done knife. It's so well balanced. It's simple. It's attractive. It functions really well. It's easy to carry. The design is nice. I mean, there's just lots of good going on here. There are a couple little nitpicks that I may have along the way, but overall, I am really impressed with this knife, beginning from the start with the size and weight. Now, you guys know I like larger knives, but I don't always want to deal with the extra weight and the extra inconvenience that sometimes comes with a larger knife, and for that, this is fantastic. So this is 8 5/8 overall, 3 13/16 on the blade, so a little over 3 3/4, 4 7/8 on the handle, so that's the closed measurement. As you can see, it's pretty thin, and it only weighs, by the way, you can see internal milling there. So I better open the blade to get it out of the way so you can see that. So that internal milling lightens this knife up, and it only weighs 4.4 ounces. So for a large knife, it carries really comfortably. Oh yeah, while we're talking about numbers here, the grip area on this is over 4 inches, like 4 1/4, 4 1/8. So tons and tons of room, even if you have very large hands. So size and weight is the first thing that I really like about this knife. It carries very comfortably. And yet when you open this up, you've got lots of handle real estate, you've got lots of cutting edge, you're getting a ton of utility and a ton of cutting power for what to me is a pretty lightweight package, right? Like typical, a 9-inch titanium frame lock is normally going to be at least 5 ounces, most likely much more than that. And so this one being at 4.5 ounces, I think I said 4.4 before, I should have said 4.5, is really nice. So yeah, carries well and gives you a ton of knife in a fairly lightweight, easy to carry package. So complete win in terms of size and weight. The next thing I have to say I like quite a bit about this is this clip point blade. We've got a high flat grind, not a full flat grind, a bit of a swedge here, a little bit of a stone wash on the top here, nice and thin behind the edge. And so overall, a really well balanced blade. This cuts very nicely. It's not so crazy fine at the tip that you're constantly worried about it. And so nearly a perfect blade for EDC purposes. It's a little thinner than some of the knives we've reviewed recently, so it slices a little nicer. Just a perfect utility blade. S35VN, so you're going to get great performance in terms of edge retention and corrosion resistance. I'm definitely a huge fan of this blade. The only little hiccup I can see here is it's hard to even notice it on camera. Maybe some of you can see it there. I'm trying to show you as best I can. There's almost just a slight suggestion of a recurve there. I mean, it's barely even there, but that is one. It just looks like they've maybe gotten a little overzealous sharpening this particular one. I've looked at tons of these in pictures, and I've talked to others about theirs, and no one's mentioned it. So I think it might just be this example. And even on this example, it's almost imperceptible, and it may be completely my imagination. Okay, it could be just a bit of an optical illusion there, but it seems to have just a hint of a recurve. Now, in use and in sharpening, it's not even noticeable, and so I'm not going to take points away or anything like that. Just wanted to point it out while we're looking there, especially because we're on camera, so you guys would be able to, some of you may notice it. So the blade is fantastic. I'm a huge fan of this blade. And so, yeah, if you haven't figured it out yet, guys, I'm pretty impressed by this knife overall. There's nothing that stands out to me that it's really messed up, right? Everything is done right. And so anyway, uh, I just don't want to come off as overly positive. I'm just singing this knife's praises, but I kind of am because they've done a really good job here. So moving on to the action. We've talked about the blade. We've talked about the size and weight. What about the action? Well, we have a lock bar here that is very, very accessible. You can see the stainless steel lock bar insert here. It is on bearings and it is very smooth. Sometimes on a bearing knife, you'll feel the bearings rolling a little bit, but this is just very, very smooth, very clean, feels really, really nice. The flipper is quite accessible and reliable. It is, of course, drop shut. So I really, again, don't have any major complaint about this. The only thing I could kind of wish for, and this is somewhat my preference, but I think it's a pretty general preference, I would have liked to see just a slightly, very slightly stiffer detent. Now, you guys know my standard here, and I've said it over and over again. If a knife deploys reliably, that is, if when I try to open the knife, it always opens and I'm never getting sort of a half deployment, this kind of thing happening, then as far as I'm concerned, the detent is good. In this case, what I have to say is, it's good, but not great. It would be great if it was just a hair stiffer. Not much, but just a little tiny bit. Whoops, sorry about that, guys. There's no earthquake here. I just banged into the camera. So I would like to see the detent just a little stiffer, but that's really not a complaint. It's just a preference of mine. So overall, I enjoy this action quite a bit. It's very, very comfortable, very easy, very reliable, which is really all the things that I'm looking for when deploying a knife. Okay, let's move on to the handle. And again, the handle is something that I enjoy quite a bit. And here's what I think this knife needs to be, given quite a bit of credit for. First off, the name is Thorax. And when you hear a name like that, I don't know about you, but I start to get worried that the design is going to look too much like a bug. I generally hate that. I didn't like it on the Browse Bionics or whatever it was. I don't know, like if you're making and designing knives out there, if you take inspiration from an animal, just don't lean too heavily on it. Like, I don't want a fin on the back of my knife, okay? Even if it's called the whale shark or whatever. I don't want scales on my knife, generally speaking. The WE 604 is the exemption to that rule. But, so when the knife is called a thorax, it can be a little concerning, right? You're afraid to start seeing legs sticking out of this or a wing pattern on the side or something like that. But this is really, really well done. The milling just adds a little bit of detail. It adds some texturing, adds some grip, makes the knife a little more visually interesting, but it's not over the top. And so I have to say, I really like the styling on this. They've kept it pretty clean. They've kept it pretty classy. And this could almost be put into that gentleman's folder category. And almost, okay? It's a little maybe big or heavily built for that, but it's close because it's just clean, it's simple. Really, really like that. It is, of course, a titanium frame lock. We've got a titanium backspacer here, milled out to save weight, single position pocket clip. So a lot of stuff we're pretty used to seeing at this point. So nothing crazy here about the construction. The quality is quite good. Fit and finish is quite good. I have no big complaints about that either. You look for things like things being centered and no rough spots. Everything is clean, and this is really well done. In hand, it's comfortable. I wouldn't say it's the most comfortable knife I own or anything like that, but I also don't have any issue with it. So I guess on the handle front, if we were going to take any points away, we could say maybe it's not as comfortable as, I don't know, what's a good example here? Let's say a Para 2. We're getting close to comparisons anyway. So if we bring a Para 2 in, a Para 2 just feels great in hand, has that ability to choke up. It's just a really comfortable knife all around. So compared to that, it's not quite there, but it's very comfortable. The edges are rounded. I don't feel any major hot spots. I don't have any issues. And when cutting, doing, sort of repetitive cutting tasks with this, nothing develops in terms of that makes me think, oh man, this is a real issue. So yeah, handle is well built. It's well, it's clean. The fit and finish is very good, and it's fairly comfortable in hand. So those are basically, again, all the things we look for in a good knife, and this one checks all the boxes. Want to get to some comparisons. I've got a good number of comparisons for you guys because there are quite a number of fairly well done titanium frame locks out there, and I do think this stands out among them as doing some things really, really well. Before we get to all of those, let me throw in just some other alternatives that I think people are more familiar with that will hopefully give you an idea about size and all that kind of stuff. So here, of course, is a Para 2. Everyone's familiar with the Para 2, so that should give you an idea of size. Here's a slightly larger knife. This is the Spyderco Native. This is the Native Chief, so a little larger than the typical Native, and you can again see the size on the Tuya there. Similar in terms of overall blade length. What else have we got? Let's bring in another Spyderco. I guess it's sort of a Spyderco themed review today. So there is the Amalgam, one of my all-around favorite Spydercos, and again, similar in size, a little less cutting edge. The Amalgam is maybe a little more comfortable in hand, but not anything significant. So now we can get to some more comparable blades. Let's begin with the Kingsman. This is similar in size, but a little larger and a little bit simpler. And I like that simplicity. I really enjoy that. And also these guys, the Thorax, Dave seems to have to put them on sale every so often. And so if you kind of watch and wait, you can pick these Thoraxes up for a pretty attractive price point. The Kingsman, because it's new and because it's got some extra detail and some higher end materials, you're not going to get for the same price. But since that's the only other Tuya I have around right now, I thought I'd add that to the video as a comparison. Another knife that would be in a similar sort of vein, if you will, is this Bestech Bison. Now, the reason I put this in a similar vein is because it's you know, it got some high-end features, but it's primarily designed to be a user, and I feel that way about the Thorax as well. Fairly similar knives. The steel on this guy is going to be a little bit better. I think we've got D2 over here. Yeah, we do. And you're really not going to pay, if you wait for a good sale, you're not going to pay a whole lot more for the Thorax. Here we go. Here's a knife that's new from Rake Knives. This is the 875 ZT, or is that right? TZ maybe. Yeah, TZ, let's try that. A very nice knife. I like this design a lot. You know, some similarities here in that these are both overseas companies. They're both offering a fairly budget-friendly price point on these two. And now let's get into some higher end stuff. And there's a couple of reasons I'm bringing in some of the higher end stuff. First off, I think Tuya is hitting a little above their weight here. So the quality, the fit and finish, the action on Tuya knives, I have always been quite impressed. Now, I haven't handled every single one, right? I don't have 100 or 200 to compare, but the 5 or 6 that I've handled have been quite good. And so I would compare them in quality, just, you know, a little nicer than a Kaiser or a Bestech, not quite as nice as a Wii or a Riyadh, and that's where I would kind of land these. Now, of course, price point is significantly different. These guys are like 160, and, you know, these two you're going to be over $300 and just under $300. So that's obviously very considerable. One last thing that I have to compare here, and this is a knife that I've recently gotten back in the collection. This is a Chris Reeve Inkosi with black micarta. Really, really like this particular version of this knife. It still has the lanyard on it because I've only had it for a few days. I haven't had a chance to take that lanyard off. But wanted to do a little comparison here just because this is such a standard in terms of titanium frame locks that I thought it made sense to include this in our discussion because many people are familiar with the size and the handle length and the blade length and all that kind of stuff on the Inkosi. So there you go, guys. That should give you lots to think about in terms of comparisons and give you a really, really good overall idea on how this knife stacks up and where it kind of lands in the world of high-end titanium frame locks. This one is pretty good, okay? So what are my overall thoughts? Well, look, guys, if you haven't figured it out by now, I like this knife quite a lot. I think the price point is very good. It functions exactly as I would want it to function, right? I don't really have any standout issue here that I can complain about. It's attractive. It cuts well. It's nice in hand. You know, that detent is a little soft, but very functional, so I can't even really complain about that. This just delivers all that you want out of a folding knife. Gives you some high-end fit and finish, some higher-end feel, I guess, and for not a super high-end price point. So there you go, guys. That's what I think of the Tuya Knives Thorax. Really, really good. In fact, this may be one of the best all-around Tuya offerings that's out there right now, just because it delivers all the good stuff. The design is widely appealing, I would say, and the price point is extremely, extremely attractive. So there you go. Thanks, Dave, for sending this along. If you're watching this and you want to pick one up, I'll put a link to the Facebook page and the website of Tuya Knives, so you can go head over there and get one. If you happen to buy it, because this video mentioned to Dave that you did, just so he can kind of say, hey, you know, it was definitely worthwhile sending some stuff over to Kevin. All right. So again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.